It was a calm evening in the city, the kind of evening that felt ordinary to everyone except those who knew how quickly life could change. The streets were busy with people hurrying home from work, some stopping at small cafes, others walking past neon-lit stores that advertised everything from clothes to gadgets. Among the hustle and bustle, a grand restaurant stood quietly, its doors gleaming under the soft glow of lanterns. The restaurant was well known among the wealthy for its elegance, privacy, and fine cuisine. It was the perfect place for someone important to dine without attracting too much attention. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. The air carried the scent of fresh bread, spices, and grilled meat, mixing with the soft hum of classical music playing in the background. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, carrying trays filled with glasses and dishes, bowing politely as they served guests. Everything looked perfect, almost as if time had slowed down for this moment. But among the staff, one young girl moved quietly, unnoticed by most. She was the daughter of one of the maids. She had been helping at the restaurant for a few months, learning the routines, observing the patterns of guests and staff alike. She was small and unassuming, with an air of quiet intelligence that made her seem almost invisible. But those who paid attention could see that there was something different about her, a sharpness in her eyes that suggested she noticed far more than she let on. Tonight, the restaurant was hosting a very special guest. A billionaire, known not only for his wealth but for his influence and powerful business decisions, had chosen this place for dinner. Security was discreet but present, with a few men standing near the entrance and others blending in with the crowd. The billionaire was calm, smiling politely at those who recognized him, sipping his drink as if he were just another guest enjoying a meal. He was completely unaware that trouble was quietly approaching. Outside the restaurant, 5 men had been watching for some time. Their movements were careful and calculated, their eyes fixed on the entrance as if they were waiting for the right moment. They were not here by accident. They had a plan, and it was dangerous. They moved slowly, making sure no one nearby suspected anything. In their minds, they were confident. They believed they could act quickly, strike hard, and leave before anyone could react. But they did not know that the night would not go as they had planned. Back inside, the staff went about their work, serving meals and clearing tables with polite efficiency. The young maid's daughter continued her quiet routine, carrying plates and refilling glasses. Her eyes, however, were alert. She had noticed something unusual when the men arrived, the way they lingered outside, the way they glanced around nervously, and the way one of them kept checking a device in his hand. She did not panic. She did not alert anyone yet, because she needed to understand the situation first. She had learned from experience that rushing without knowing the facts could make things worse. Instead, she moved calmly, positioning herself so she could observe both the men outside and the guests inside. As the evening went on, the billionaire enjoyed his meal. The servers brought course after course, each dish more delicious than the last. Conversation flowed around him, laughter and chatter filling the space. To an outsider, it was just another night at a busy restaurant. But the maid's daughter could sense the tension building. Something was about to happen, and she was the only one who seemed to notice the small signs, the quick glances from the men, the way their hands twitched slightly as if anticipating action. In another corner of the restaurant, other guests continued with their dinners, oblivious to the danger nearby. Some were celebrating birthdays, others were meeting business partners, and a few were simply enjoying a night out. The restaurant's calm appearance was a perfect disguise for the storm that was approaching. No one expected that within moments, the serene environment would be filled with chaos and fear. The maid's daughter remembered the stories her mother had told her about courage and quick thinking. Her mother, a hardworking woman who had served in many households, always said that ordinary people could do extraordinary things if they kept their mind clear and acted decisively. She repeated these words silently to herself as she moved closer to the door, keeping an eye on the men outside. Every step she took was careful, measured. She had no doubt that she would need to act, but she also knew that rushing in without a plan could make things worse. Meanwhile, the billionaire finished his main course, smiling at the staff who came to check on him. He did not notice the subtle changes in the atmosphere. The music still played, The candles flickered softly, and the guests remained cheerful. Yet the maid's daughter could see it, the shadow of danger creeping closer, ready to disrupt the peaceful night. As the minutes passed, the men outside finally made their move. They entered the restaurant one by one, their expressions serious, their eyes scanning for their target. The staff felt a sudden unease, noticing the way these strangers moved differently than the usual patrons. The young maid's daughter, however, stayed calm. She did not need to wait for anyone else to react. She knew what she had to do. Her hidden skill, something she had trained for but never had the chance to use, was ready. The first few moments of the men entering were subtle. They tried to approach the billionaire discreetly, blending in with the crowd. Some guests noticed them, but no one suspected the full extent of their intentions. The maid's daughter kept herself between the men and the billionaire, her eyes sharp, her mind racing through possible actions. Every step she took, every decision she made was crucial. She had to act at the right moment, and she had to act decisively. This was the calm before the storm, the moment when everyone still believed that the evening would pass without incident. But for the maid's daughter, there was no calm, only focus, awareness, and preparation. She knew that the next few minutes would change everything, not just for the billionaire but for everyone in the restaurant. Her ordinary appearance hid an extraordinary capability, a skill that no one expected, and she was ready to reveal it when the time came. The scene was set. The restaurant glowed softly under the warm lights. The guests chatted and laughed. The billionaire enjoyed his meal, and the 5 men prepared to make their move. The maid's daughter, quiet and unassuming, watched it all unfold. She knew that what happened next could either end in disaster or heroism. And as she took a deep breath, her mind steady and alert, she silently promised herself that she would not let fear control the night. She would act, she would protect, and she would change the course of events with the hidden skill that no one had ever seen before. The restaurant, once calm and warm, suddenly felt a shift in the air. Guests continued their conversations, but there was a subtle change, a tension that could be felt even if it wasn't yet visible. The 5 men had moved closer to the billionaire's table. Their eyes were fixed, their movements precise and quiet. Each step they took seemed measured, as if they were rehearsing a plan that only they understood. The staff started to notice the unease, the slight stiffness in the air, the way the normal flow of service felt heavier, more cautious. The billionaire, enjoying his evening, did not notice the approach. He smiled politely at the waiter who brought the next course, commenting lightly on the flavors, unaware of the danger drawing near. He leaned back in his chair, relaxed but slightly alert, a habit from years of being in situations where he had to be cautious. Yet, nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. The 5 men finally reached the table. 2 of them positioned themselves near the entrance to block any exits, while the other 3 moved closer to the billionaire, their expressions hard and determined. The restaurant's normal rhythm faltered as other guests sensed something unusual. Phones were discreetly raised to record, but no one understood the severity of the situation yet. Panic was still far from immediate, but the air crackled with the tension of impending chaos. The maid's daughter, moving quietly through the restaurant as if she belonged in every corner, watched the situation unfold with sharp focus. Her small frame belied the power and skill hidden within her. She understood what was happening before anyone else, reading the subtle signs, the way the men's eyes darted, the slight tightening of their fists, and the precise timing of their movements. She knew that this was no ordinary confrontation. This was an ambush. One of the attackers made the first move. He reached toward the billionaire's table in a sudden, aggressive motion. A gasp escaped from a nearby guest, and a few chairs scraped against the floor as people instinctively recoiled. The billionaire turned slightly, startled by the movement, finally realizing that something was wrong. But by then, the maid's daughter had already shifted her position. She moved with silent speed, her mind calculating the best course of action. She did not hesitate. The other attackers reacted to the first man's move, their coordination revealing the experience behind their plan. They attempted to surround the billionaire, cutting off his escape and creating a barrier between him and anyone who might help. Guests began to murmur, some standing in shock, others frozen in fear. The waiters, trained to maintain composure, were unsure what to do, their professional instincts clashing with the instinct to protect themselves. At that moment, the maid's daughter acted. She stepped forward, placing herself strategically between the attackers and the billionaire. Her presence was sudden, precise, and commanding. She did not shout or make noise. She simply moved with confidence and purpose. Her eyes locked on the attackers, calculating their next moves, predicting their intentions. Every second was critical. Every movement counted. One of the men lunged forward, attempting to grab the billionaire. In response, the maid's daughter intercepted him. With swift, controlled movements, she pushed him back, using his momentum against him. The man stumbled, surprised by her speed and skill. The guests gasped in disbelief, some taking a step back, others frozen in awe. No one had expected such a young, unassuming girl to react so effectively. The remaining attackers hesitated, thrown off by the unexpected resistance. They had anticipated fear and confusion, but they were facing something entirely different. The maid's daughter moved gracefully, yet with purpose, positioning herself to block their paths. She guided the billionaire slightly back, ensuring he was out of immediate reach while keeping herself between him and the attackers. Her calmness contrasted sharply with the rising tension in the room. One of the attackers, more aggressive than the others, tried to circle around her. But she was prepared. In a fluid motion, she shifted her stance, redirecting his momentum and forcing him to stumble into the table beside him. Plates clattered, a glass tipped, and the sound of metal hitting the floor echoed sharply, adding to the chaos. Guests flinched, some instinctively covering their eyes, while others looked on in awe, unable to believe what they were witnessing. The billionaire, finally understanding the gravity of the situation, instinctively leaned forward, ready to act. But he realized that he did not need to. The maid's daughter was already controlling the situation. Her eyes were sharp, her movements precise. She anticipated each strike, each attempt, and countered without hesitation. She was not just reacting. She was directing the flow of events, guiding the attackers away from the billionaire and keeping him safe. The attackers quickly realized that they had underestimated her. Their confidence began to waver. One of them, frustrated, attempted a more aggressive maneuver, lunging toward her with force. She sidestepped with remarkable agility, using his own momentum to push him toward another attacker. The two collided, momentarily distracted, giving her a critical advantage. Every move she made was strategic, each action calculated to protect the billionaire while minimizing harm to others. Guests began to murmur more audibly, some reaching for their phones, others frozen in disbelief. The restaurant, once calm and elegant, had become a scene of controlled chaos. Yet through it all, the maid's daughter remained composed, her focus unbroken. She understood that panic could spread quickly, and she knew that her calmness could influence those around her. Her presence had become the center of the room, the anchor in the storm. Security personnel, who had been initially caught off guard, began to react. They moved cautiously, trying to assess the situation without escalating it. The maid's daughter subtly adjusted her position, signaling with her eyes and gestures, guiding them toward the attackers without speaking a word. Her coordination with the environment was instinctive, revealing her training and experience. The attackers, now aware that they were facing unexpected resistance, grew desperate. They exchanged brief glances, realizing that their plan was failing. The element of surprise, which they had relied on, was gone. The young maid's daughter had become the obstacle they could not anticipate, and every attempt they made to reach the billionaire was thwarted with skillful precision. In the midst of the struggle, the billionaire finally understood the true danger he had faced. He watched in awe as the maid's daughter moved between him and the attackers, protecting him with a level of courage and ability that seemed impossible for someone so young and quiet. He wanted to intervene, to help, but he realized that any sudden move could worsen the situation. Instead, he stayed close, trusting her instincts and skills. The first signs of success began to appear. One attacker, thrown off balance by the maid's daughter's actions, stumbled into a waiter's cart, knocking over trays and creating a barrier. Another tried to retreat but found himself blocked by her careful positioning. It became clear that the attackers were losing control, their confidence shattered by the unexpected resistance. The room, though still tense, began to sense a shift. The fear that had gripped the guests softened slightly as they realized that someone was actively protecting the billionaire. Eyes widened in amazement as they watched the maid's daughter continue to counter the attackers with remarkable skill. No one had expected this. No one had anticipated that the quiet, unassuming girl who served tables and refilled glasses could become the key player in a life-or-death situation. Finally, one of the attackers, frustrated and desperate, tried to retreat. But the maid's daughter had anticipated this as well. With swift, precise movements, she blocked his path, forcing him to stop. Her eyes locked on his, calm yet commanding, and in that moment, it became clear that the tide had turned. The attackers were no longer in control. They had miscalculated, and she had seized the advantage. The billionaire, breathing heavily but unharmed, looked around at the room filled with guests, staff, and the men who had tried to attack him. His eyes finally met the maid's daughter's, and in that brief moment, a silent understanding passed between them. She had saved him. She had turned a potentially tragic situation into one of control and safety. The attackers, realizing their plan had failed, exchanged hurried glances. They were no longer confident, no longer aggressive. They were forced to reconsider, their movements slower, more cautious. The maid's daughter remained vigilant, ensuring that any attempt to act again would be immediately countered. Her hidden skill, something no one had expected, had shifted the entire situation in her favor. And so, the ambush, which had begun with careful planning and malicious intent, was stopped in its tracks by someone who had been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. The maid's daughter had proven, in those critical moments, that courage, skill, and intelligence could overcome fear, brute force, and carefully laid plans. The restaurant, once the setting of a dangerous plot, now became a place of awe and amazement, a testament to her bravery and ability. The chaos in the restaurant had reached a peak. Plates clattered on the floor, chairs were overturned, and startled guests pressed back against walls or under tables. Yet in the center of the storm stood the maid's daughter, calm, composed, and fully aware of the dangerous game she was now controlling. Her eyes scanned the attackers carefully, reading their movements, their posture, their hesitation. She realized that brute force alone would not be enough. She had to think, anticipate, and act strategically. The billionaire remained seated but alert. His hands were slightly trembling, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of realizing how close he had come to danger. He watched the maid's daughter with growing admiration. In a few minutes, she had done what trained security personnel had struggled to accomplish. She had disrupted the attacker's plan, keeping them from reaching him while minimizing the panic among other guests. The first attacker, recovering from being thrown back by her precise movements, attempted a different approach. He lunged at her from the side, thinking that she might be overextended. But she had anticipated this. With a swift step to the side, she redirected his momentum and guided him into a decorative pillar. The sound of the collision echoed through the restaurant. Guests gasped, some covering their mouths, while others whispered urgently to each other. For most, it was hard to believe that a young, unassuming girl was the one controlling the situation. The second attacker tried to move in from behind, attempting to distract her. He believed that she would not notice from her angle, but she had been watching every movement since the beginning. In one fluid motion, she spun around, blocking his advance and redirecting him toward his accomplices. The attackers were beginning to realize that this was not an ordinary girl. She had training, skill, and a calmness that made her dangerous. The billionaire, still seated, observed quietly. He wanted to help but knew that any wrong move could escalate the situation. Instead, he focused on trusting the maid's daughter, silently acknowledging the bravery and control she had demonstrated. Every guest in the room was now on edge, holding their breath, unsure of how the confrontation would end. Suddenly, the third attacker, more aggressive than the others, attempted a direct grab. He lunged toward the billionaire, but the maid's daughter anticipated the move perfectly. With precise timing, she intercepted him, using a combination of strength and leverage to deflect him away from the billionaire. He stumbled into a waiter's cart, knocking it over, creating an additional obstacle. The restaurant had turned into a maze of overturned furniture, broken dishes, and nervous guests. But she navigated it all with ease, her movements deliberate and controlled. The fourth and fifth attackers exchanged frustrated glances. Their plan, carefully rehearsed and coordinated, was failing. The element of surprise was gone, replaced by the unexpected presence of a guardian they had not counted on. The maid's daughter, however, remained calm. She had not yet revealed the full extent of her skill, and the attackers had no idea how capable she truly was. One of the men attempted a coordinated move, thinking that they could overwhelm her with numbers. Two of them lunged from opposite directions, expecting that she could not counter both at the same time. But she moved with uncanny precision. She sidestepped one, using his own momentum to send him stumbling toward the other. The second attacker lost his balance as they collided, giving her a clear path to act decisively. Her movements were fluid, almost like a dance, each step calculated to maintain control and protect the billionaire. Guests could not hide their astonishment. Some were still crouched behind tables, peeking cautiously, while others stood frozen, watching as an ordinary young girl demonstrated extraordinary skill. Phones were raised, capturing the moment, but even through video, it was clear that what she was doing was beyond anything expected. She was calm, collected, and fully in control. The billionaire finally found his voice. He spoke quietly to her, barely audible over the chaos. "You need to get him out of here." She nodded subtly, understanding immediately. She did not panic. She had already considered the safest route for him and the best way to neutralize the attackers without causing unnecessary harm to anyone. She moved quickly toward the nearest exit, signaling the billionaire to follow. The attackers tried to pursue, but every move they made was countered with her speed, agility, and sharp intelligence. One of the men swung at her, hoping to knock her aside, but she sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and used his own force to fling him backward. He crashed into a pillar and slid to the floor, stunned. The other attackers began to hesitate. They realized that she was not ordinary. They had misjudged her entirely. Her confidence and skill were disorienting, breaking their rhythm and shaking their morale. They tried to regroup, but she was already 2 steps ahead, predicting their movements before they could act. The billionaire followed her lead, moving carefully and quickly toward safety. She guided him through the maze of tables and guests, avoiding collisions and minimizing panic. Guests instinctively moved aside, sensing the urgency and skill with which she moved. Some whispered to each other in disbelief, calling the scene unbelievable, while others tried to stay out of the way, their eyes wide with amazement. The fifth attacker, now desperate, attempted a final, reckless lunge. He had lost his composure and was determined to make at least one attempt count. But she had anticipated this. With a sudden, swift move, she intercepted him, redirecting him toward a wall. He stumbled, falling heavily onto the floor, and the other attackers froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. Security personnel, now fully aware of the situation, began to intervene cautiously. They approached from multiple directions, carefully positioning themselves to assist without escalating the danger. The maid's daughter coordinated silently with them, subtly guiding their movements and ensuring that the attackers could be contained without harm to innocent bystanders. The attackers were now clearly losing control. Their confidence shattered, their plan in ruins, and their momentum disrupted. They struggled to maintain composure. The maid's daughter continued to move with precision, blocking any attempts to regroup or strike. Her hidden skill, which had remained a secret until this moment, was fully on display. Every move was deliberate, every step calculated, and every decision made with clarity and purpose. The billionaire, now reaching the edge of the restaurant near the exit, looked back at the scene in awe. The maid's daughter had not only protected him but had also controlled a dangerous situation that could have ended in disaster. He realized that without her intervention, the outcome could have been catastrophic. Her courage, skill, and quick thinking had saved his life. Guests were beginning to murmur more audibly, some standing to get a better view. They could not stop watching, captivated by the bravery and skill of someone they had never noticed before. Some quietly remarked that it was like watching a professional, trained in ways they could not understand. The maid's daughter moved through the chaos with the ease of someone who had prepared for this, someone who had faced challenges and emerged stronger every time. The first of the attackers tried to retreat, realizing that the situation was no longer under their control. But she anticipated this, positioning herself to block any escape. The remaining men looked at each other, confusion and fear now evident in their eyes. They had thought they were in control, but they had severely underestimated the young girl who had been silently observing since the beginning. Finally, with her skill and strategy, she guided the billionaire to safety. The attackers, seeing that they were completely outmatched, began to retreat toward the entrance, unsure of what to do next. Security moved in to contain them, and the guests slowly began to regain their composure. The tension in the room, while still high, began to ease. The maid's daughter stood for a moment, catching her breath but maintaining her alertness. Her eyes scanned the room one last time, ensuring that everyone was safe and that the threat had been neutralized. Guests looked at her with newfound respect, and even the billionaire could not find words to express the depth of his gratitude. She had transformed the entire situation with her courage, intelligence, and skill. As the attackers were finally apprehended by security, it became clear to everyone that this was no ordinary young girl. Her hidden skill had been the difference between chaos and safety, between fear and control. The restaurant, which had moments ago been filled with panic, now slowly returned to a state of calm, though the memory of her bravery would linger in everyone's minds for a long time. The billionaire finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He looked at her and said, "I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life tonight." She smiled softly, a quiet, confident smile, and simply nodded. She did not need words. Her actions had spoken louder than anything could. And so, the night that began with an ambush ended with a remarkable display of courage, skill, and unexpected heroism. The maid's daughter had revealed her hidden talent, changing the course of events and proving that bravery could come from the most unexpected places. The restaurant, once filled with laughter and the soft hum of conversation, now held a heavy, charged silence. Guests were still frozen in their seats or standing cautiously, staring at the scene that had unfolded moments ago. The 5 men who had tried to attack the billionaire were now restrained by security, their expressions a mix of disbelief, fear, and frustration. The chaos had subsided, yet the memory of the events hung in the air like smoke that refused to dissipate. The billionaire remained at his table, his body tense, but his eyes were fixed on the maid's daughter. He could hardly comprehend what he had just witnessed. For a few minutes, she had been the center of control, the calm in a storm that could have ended tragically. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? How did she know exactly what to do? How could someone so young and seemingly ordinary act with such skill and precision? The guests began to murmur again, this time in admiration rather than fear. Some whispered to each other, recounting what they had seen. "Did you see how she moved?" one said. "She's incredible. She stopped them all." Another added, "I've never seen anything like it. She's like a professional." Phones that had been raised to record the attack were now capturing the aftermath, many recording the maid's daughter as she stood quietly, her breathing steady, her posture calm. The security personnel, still on high alert, exchanged glances. They had handled many high-profile situations before, but this was different. They had underestimated the attackers initially, but they had also never seen anyone intervene with such efficiency and intelligence. One of the senior officers approached her cautiously. "You handled that remarkably well," he said quietly. "Where did you learn to do that?" The maid's daughter simply smiled, a modest, quiet smile. She did not boast or explain immediately. Her mind was still racing, scanning the room, ensuring that no one was in immediate danger. She had been trained for situations like this, but she knew that the world outside her family's home and the restaurant might not understand. She had always believed that courage was shown through action, not words. The billionaire finally stood, his expression a mixture of awe and gratitude. He approached her, keeping a careful eye on the restrained attackers. "I owe you more than words can express," he said sincerely. "Tonight, you saved not only my life but possibly many others. I don't know how to thank you." She shook her head slightly, still composed. "I just did what needed to be done," she replied softly. "No one else was in a position to act, so I stepped in." Her voice was calm, but there was a quiet strength in it, a sense of determination that went beyond her years. As the security team began to escort the attackers out of the restaurant, the guests started to relax slightly. Some approached the maid's daughter cautiously, wanting to express their admiration or gratitude. Their compliments were heartfelt and sincere. "You were amazing," one guest said. "I've never seen anyone move like that." Another added, "You're a hero, truly." Despite the praise, she remained humble. She did not let the attention distract her from her responsibilities. There were still small tasks to handle, checking that guests were safe, making sure the broken furniture did not cause further harm, and ensuring that no one was injured. Even in the aftermath of such a dramatic event, her focus remained on others rather than herself. The billionaire, intrigued by her abilities, motioned for her to come closer. "I want to know more about you," he said. "This isn't something you just happened to do. You were trained, weren't you?" She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I have trained for situations like this. My mother taught me to be aware, to stay calm, and to act decisively when necessary. That's all." Her modesty only made him more impressed. In a world where many people sought attention and recognition, she had acted purely out of necessity, without ego or desire for praise. Her courage and skill were rare, and he realized that her actions had prevented a disaster that could have had long-lasting consequences. As the restaurant staff began to recover from the shock, the manager approached the maid's daughter. "I don't know how to thank you enough," he said. "You could have stayed out of this, but you didn't. You protected everyone here." She nodded quietly. "I only did what anyone should do," she replied. "I couldn't stand by and let something bad happen." Meanwhile, the guests started to take stock of the events. Some were shaking, still in shock from the close encounter. Others were amazed by the bravery they had just witnessed. The room, though calmer, carried an energy of awe. People were discussing her courage and skill, sharing their astonishment with anyone nearby. For many, this night would be unforgettable, not because of the billionaire, the luxury, or the food, but because of the extraordinary courage of someone they had underestimated. The billionaire motioned for the staff to give her a moment of rest. She stepped aside, taking a few deep breaths, her mind still alert. Even though the attackers had been restrained, she understood that the night was not over. She needed to ensure that everyone remained safe until the authorities fully took over. Her sense of responsibility was evident in every action she took. Soon, the authorities arrived, taking statements from the billionaire, the staff, and the guests. The attackers were taken into custody, their motives questioned, their plans unraveling under investigation. The maid's daughter was asked to describe what had happened. She explained calmly, describing her actions, her observations, and her reasoning. Her words were measured, thoughtful, and clear. The officials listened, impressed by her clarity and composure. The billionaire, still processing everything, finally spoke to the crowd. He wanted everyone to understand what had happened and to recognize the hero of the night. "Tonight, someone extraordinary acted without hesitation to protect not just me, but everyone in this room," he said. His voice carried through the restaurant, commanding attention. "Her courage and skill are unmatched, and I will never forget what she has done. She is the reason we are all safe tonight." Guests erupted in applause, some standing, some cheering, all showing genuine admiration. The maid's daughter, still composed, gave a small, appreciative smile. She did not seek attention, but she accepted the recognition with grace. It was not for her pride. It was to acknowledge the importance of courage and action. The manager, seeing the positive reaction, suggested something that surprised everyone. "You should be recognized officially," he said. "You have shown extraordinary bravery, and people need to know that real heroes often come from the most unexpected places." She shook her head modestly but nodded in agreement. "If my actions help inspire even one person to act courageously, that is enough," she said. As the night continued, the billionaire spent time talking to her privately. He wanted to know more about her background, her training, and how she had developed such remarkable abilities. She explained that it was a combination of careful observation, discipline, and guidance from her mother. It was not about wanting recognition or fame. It was about being prepared for moments when courage was needed. The guests began to leave, still talking animatedly about the events of the night. Many approached her to shake her hand or express gratitude, their words genuine and heartfelt. Even the staff, who had known her for months but never fully realized her capabilities, looked at her with newfound respect. She had transformed from a quiet, unnoticed presence into the center of admiration and awe. The billionaire, deeply impressed, offered her something that would change her life. He wanted to ensure that her skill and bravery were not wasted, that she could continue to use her abilities for good in the future. She listened thoughtfully, considering the opportunity, but remained humble. Her focus had always been on doing what was right, not seeking rewards. As the night drew to a close, the restaurant slowly returned to its normal atmosphere. Guests departed, security returned to their usual positions, and the staff began to clean up the aftermath. Yet the events of the evening left a lasting impression on everyone present. They had witnessed courage, intelligence, and skill in someone they would have never expected. The maid's daughter quietly returned to her duties, her calm demeanor unchanged despite the extraordinary events. She had acted with bravery and precision, protected those in danger, and revealed a hidden talent that had astonished everyone. Yet, in her heart, she knew that true courage was not about recognition. It was about doing what was necessary when the moment demanded it. The billionaire, reflecting on the night, realized that her actions had taught him something profound. In the world of power, wealth, and influence, it was easy to overlook ordinary people. Yet extraordinary courage often came from those who were humble, unnoticed, and underestimated. The maid's daughter had reminded him that true heroism could appear in the most unexpected forms. The morning after the incident, the city felt calmer, but the events at the restaurant were still the main topic of conversation among those who had witnessed them. Guests who had been there the previous night shared the story with friends, co-workers, and even strangers. "You won't believe what happened," they said. "A young girl stopped an attack on a billionaire. She was incredible." The tale spread quickly, and with each retelling, the amazement grew. For the maid's daughter, however, it was just another day. She arrived at the restaurant as usual, ready to start her shift, carrying herself with the same quiet composure that had defined her for months. Yet something had changed. The staff who had once seen her as a quiet, helpful presence now looked at her with awe and admiration. Even the manager offered a warm smile and a nod of respect. "You're something else," he said softly. "I hope you know that what you did last night was extraordinary." She smiled faintly, modestly, as she quietly moved to start her duties. The billionaire, unable to stop thinking about the events of the previous night, had arranged to visit the restaurant early. He wanted to meet with her privately and express his gratitude. When she noticed him arriving, she was slightly surprised, but she did not show it. She continued with her work, keeping her composure as always. He approached her with a respectful smile, extending his hand. "I can't thank you enough," he said. "Last night you saved lives, including mine. You have courage, skill, and presence of mind that few people possess. I would like to offer you an opportunity to use those abilities in a bigger way." She paused, considering his words. She was not used to such recognition, nor did she seek it. Yet she understood the weight of the offer. It was not about wealth or fame. It was about being able to make a difference, to continue to act with skill and courage when needed. She nodded slowly. "I appreciate your offer," she said quietly. "I will consider it carefully. My priority is always to help when it's needed." Her humility impressed him even more. News outlets had caught wind of the story, and soon the maid's daughter became known in her city as the girl who had stopped a dangerous attack on a billionaire. Interviews were requested, but she politely declined most of them. She preferred her actions to speak for themselves. Her focus remained on her work, helping the staff, serving the guests, and maintaining the calm professionalism she had always valued. Despite her modesty, her reputation grew. People began to see her as a symbol of courage and intelligence, proof that heroism often comes from unexpected places. The billionaire, true to his word, provided support and opportunities for her to further develop her skills and contribute in meaningful ways. She was offered training, mentorship, and resources to continue helping others in situations that demanded quick thinking, bravery, and skill. The restaurant itself also changed. It became a place not only of elegance and fine dining but also of inspiration. Patrons who heard the story were amazed, some seeking her out just to see the young girl who had saved the day. Yet she remained humble, treating everyone with the same courtesy and professionalism she had always shown. Her fame did not change her. It only highlighted her extraordinary courage. The attackers, meanwhile, faced legal consequences. They had underestimated her completely and were held accountable for their actions. The authorities praised her as well, recognizing that her quick thinking had prevented potential injuries or worse. Their reports highlighted her bravery, her skill, and her ability to act decisively under pressure. She had turned a dangerous situation into one of control and safety, and it had not gone unnoticed. Life continued, but for her, nothing would be quite the same. She had discovered that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences. The events of that night had shown her that courage was not about strength alone. It was about awareness, preparation, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Every day afterward, she carried herself with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing she had made a real difference in the world. The billionaire stayed in touch, sometimes inviting her to speak or work alongside him in situations where her abilities could be of great value. She remained selective, choosing only those opportunities that aligned with her values and her desire to help others. Over time, she became more confident in her skills, more comfortable in her decisions, and more aware of the positive impact she could have. Her family and the restaurant staff also celebrated her accomplishments privately. Her mother, proud beyond words, told her that she had always believed in her daughter's courage and intelligence. The staff, once skeptical of her quiet nature, now treated her with a newfound respect. They recognized that bravery often comes silently, without fanfare, but with undeniable impact. The billionaire, reflecting on the incident, realized the lesson he had learned. Influence, wealth, and power are important, but courage, intelligence, and quick thinking from ordinary people can be far more valuable in critical moments. He often spoke about the maid's daughter to his colleagues and associates, emphasizing the importance of recognizing hidden talents and appreciating the unexpected heroes among us. As days turned into weeks, her story continued to inspire others. People shared it online, in newspapers, and through word of mouth. It reminded everyone that true heroism does not always wear a uniform or appear in expected places. Sometimes, it comes in the form of someone quietly observing, someone who notices what others do not, someone willing to step forward when it matters most. In the restaurant, life gradually returned to a comfortable rhythm. Guests resumed their meals without fear, staff worked efficiently, and the elegant atmosphere returned. Yet the memory of that night lingered. The tables, chairs, and even the lighting seemed to carry the echo of bravery that had filled the room. Patrons sometimes glanced at her with quiet admiration, aware that the unassuming girl in their midst had once prevented a disaster. Over time, the maid's daughter took on new responsibilities. She began training some of the staff in awareness and basic safety, sharing lessons she had learned from her training and experiences. She emphasized that courage was about observation, preparation, and calm action rather than reckless force. Her sessions were simple, practical, and inspiring. The staff admired her even more, not only for her bravery, but for her willingness to teach and uplift others. The billionaire's life, too, was forever changed. He had faced danger and survived, thanks to her courage and skill. He often reflected on the importance of recognizing talent in unexpected places, and he worked to provide opportunities for others who, like her, had abilities that might otherwise go unnoticed. He saw in her example a reminder that the world is full of hidden heroes waiting for the right moment to act. For the maid's daughter, every day became an affirmation of what she had done. She understood the responsibility that came with her skill, and she approached each new day with focus and humility. She continued her work at the restaurant, helped her family, and remained attentive to the world around her, knowing that courage could be called for at any moment. Years later, the story of that night remained in the memories of everyone involved. Guests who had witnessed it told the tale repeatedly, often adding the same words of awe. She saved him. She saved everyone. The staff continued to speak of her with respect, and the billionaire frequently shared her story as a testament to bravery, intelligence, and the quiet power of ordinary people who rise to extraordinary challenges. Though the maid's daughter had become widely known, she remained modest. She never sought fame or recognition beyond what was necessary to inspire or help others. Her life continued quietly, but her impact remained profound. She had demonstrated that courage does not require grand gestures, only awareness, preparation, and the willingness to act. She had changed the course of events that night, saved lives, and reminded everyone that true heroes often come from places least expected. The restaurant, now forever marked by her bravery, became a symbol of courage, resilience, and unexpected heroism. Visitors would sometimes ask about the girl who had protected the billionaire, and the staff would smile and recount the story, highlighting the quiet strength and skill that had made all the difference. The maid's daughter had left a permanent mark, not only in the restaurant, but in the hearts and minds of everyone who witnessed her actions. In the end, her story was not just about one night or one attack. It was about courage, awareness, and the power of ordinary people to make extraordinary changes. She had acted when it mattered most, without hesitation, without seeking attention, and with remarkable skill. Her hidden ability, once unnoticed, became a beacon of hope and inspiration for countless others. And so life went on. The billionaire continued his work, grateful for the night that could have ended in tragedy. The maid's daughter continued her quiet life, working, learning, and helping others. Yet both of them, in their own ways, carried the memory of that night. The night when courage and skill from an unexpected source had changed everything. It was a reminder to the world that heroes are not always the ones we expect, but the ones who rise to the occasion when it truly matters.